Welcome back to another episode of the Slanted Attic Experience. Today, we're diving into the second installment of our book club series, and this time, we're taking on a literary classic, Ernest Hemingway's The Old Man and the Sea. It's a short read, but one that leaves a lasting impact. I'm your host, Tyler, and I'm joined by 4 returning guests who bring a wide range of perspectives to the table. Graham, born in the heart of North Carolina, grew up immersed in college sports, but today he's turning his analytical eye towards Hemingway's layered storytelling. Coleman brings a grounded, introspective lens from his roots in Richmond, with a passion for music, nature, and the kind of quiet reflection this story demands. Luis, our modern creative based in LA, approaches every topic with curiosity and depth, and he brings the same thoughtful energy here. And finally, Hunter, lifelong Hokie, former cannabis farmer, and current aspiring golf champion, delivers a fresh, honest take you won't want to miss. In this episode, we break down our thoughts on the book's message and style, compare it to similar works, and share which themes hit hardest. We revisit key moments from Santiago's journey, explore what they mean to us, and talk through how Hemingway's minimalism shapes the experience. Then, we wrap it all up with our final ratings. And yes, there's a bit of debate. It's a meaningful conversation that blends literature with lived experience, and we're excited to bring you along for the ride. Let's get into it. What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Slanted Attic Experience. Today, we're delighted to bring you another episode of the book club. This week's book was Old Man and the Sea by Ernest Hemingway. He's born in Oak Park, Illinois, but actually joined the volunteer ambulance unit in the Italian Army, decorated at that, came back to America, I believe. He was a reporter for a little while, and then started writing in his 20s. I think his first book says first important work, The Sun Also Rises, in 1926. So the book that we have here was written in, I believe, 1952. And was basically world renowned the next year. I believe it won a Pulitzer Prize in 1953, and then the Nobel Peace Prize for Literature in 1950. Actually, that was 53, or no, that's right. 1953 Pulitzer Prize, and then 1954 Nobel Peace Prize. So today we're joined by Coleman, who wasn't available for the last book club podcast, so we'd like to welcome him here, and Graham's going to get right into it with a little synopsis of the book, and then everybody's going to kind of share their opinions and what we thought about the book we read this past week.
Yeah, so first off, I have to say, great book. I think Ernest Hemingway does a very good job of just scrying and giving detailed descriptions about everything,
Yeah.
and it makes you really interested, like, in not only what's going on in the book, but also, like, you were talking about, Tyler, before, some of the items that were used on the boat, like some of those things that you might have never heard of before. And so it's just really, like, well thought out storyline. Kind of brief summary of it. So it's based on, obviously, Old Man in the Sea. So it's this old man who's named Santiago, who's a fisherman in Cuba, and has returned empty-handed for 84 straight days. He has a companion with him who's a young man by the name of Manolin, and they develop this strong bond and friendship, but they're continually unsuccessful, and so Manolin ends up getting pulled from the boat by his parents and goes to another boat where he ends up being more successful, but he misses the bond that he had with Santiago, the old man. And then Santiago goes out on the 85th day and goes out much further than he usually does, and ends up finding this fish, this massive marlin, and pulls it in and ends up having to drag it around for 3 days until he finally tires. Then he can bring it in close enough to stab it with a harpoon. But then, as he's bringing it with him, all the blood from the marlin that was caused by the harpoon starts going, and as he's coming back, the sharks end up following the marlin blood, and he ends up having to give the marlin to the sharks in order to save his own life, and comes back. And yeah, I mean, that's kind of the gist of it. I think one thing too is the last line of the book, where it's, the old man returns to sleep and dreams his usual dream of lions that play on the beaches of Africa.
Right.
So it's kind of he's back at peace a little bit. So it's kind of, he goes on this adventurous journey, risks his life, puts his life on the line, and at the end, the boy comes back and finds him and is crying, and then goes, wants to go back out with him the next day. So I think it's just a really touching story of friendship and courage and overcoming adversity. And yeah, that's all I have to say on that for right now. So I'll leave the floor to y'all if y'all have anything else to add.
Yeah, I mean, I think you covered the majority of it. The one thing that I kind of got while reading it this time, because I'd read it before, but what really picked up on it this time was the old man kind of represents like the old ways of doing things, because it's set in the 50s. So he represents, he's out there with hand tackle in a small skiff, whereas like the boy joined a boat with like engines and actual fishing equipment and stuff. And the old man talks about how, what the airplane must feel like and stuff like that. And it's just kind of the archaic versus like progress, and how even though it might be an old school way of doing things, you can still succeed in the way, you know, just as easily as you could with the new way of doing things. It's like tradition versus, progress.
Right. Well, and I think also on top of that, like the tradition of fishing, but also like, you could see it in baseball, like his love for Joe
Mm-hmm.
DiMaggio, like the tradition of baseball in America.
Right.
And like it kind of in that same way where it's, there's other sports, and there's not baseball in Cuba, or like not, MLB. There's baseball in Cuba, but not like major leagues. But then like he still has that love, and that's part of what he bonds with Manolin over,
Yeah.
is that as well.
Yeah, I thought that both of those things were extremely important. The part about the airplane was probably the most interesting point in the book for me, because I thought Hemingway did a great job and basically put me in an envelope, and I thought it was, technology is much further regressed at the time. I didn't realize this book was set in 1952 when he wrote it. To me,
Yeah. I mean, when you first start reading it, it sounds like it was written in like the early
right.
1900s,
And then
Yeah.
and then that hit me and I was like, holy shit, this is fucking insane. And then he goes on to talk about the radios and the engines and the new boats and how he wishes he were able to listen to the baseball games. And that was another thing that was awesome for me, with my love of baseball. But just how far I guess the sport travels and how he thought about it. The great Joe DiMaggio, with the bone spurs, and he uses that comparison. I wonder if I could deal with that in my life, when in reality, homie's like about to die trying to pull in this fish. And yeah, that was an interesting not allegory, like facsimile or something like that. I'm not sure exactly how that's.
Well, I think that's an interesting point because, one of the whole things about the book is determination, and you can kind of do whatever you want as long as you stick your mind to it. And he didn't even realize what he was doing. All he could think about was how hard Major League Baseball could be. And he's fighting a 1,200-pound fish for 3 days without sleep or, food. Like that's harder than any MLB game you'll ever play.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's the perspective. I really enjoyed that part too, and the themes of like man versus himself, man versus nature,
Yeah.
and the book itself versus the last one we read, which was Animal Farm. If you haven't listened to that episode, go check it out. But that book had multiple characters and there's dynamic interactions and stuff. This is just him and his thoughts, and he's alone. And the narration and reflection of the things he said, and like you said, like if you put your mind to it. So a lot of times he would start with like, "Oh, I'm old and weak. I can't do this thing," and then he would, tell himself in another voice, almost like, "No, you can do this. You've done this your whole life," kind of thing. So like he almost like manifested himself catching the biggest fish he's ever seen, and even though he didn't bring it back and no one saw it or whatever, like he did it and it happened, and he went back and he dreamed his dream. And
Right.
yeah, that last line when I like heard it again today, because I listened to it again this morning, but like it just was like sent chills down my spine. It was like,
Well, the thing I love about the end is he just got completely screwed out of this fish, and he gets back, and the kid's all crying, and he's like, "Yeah, shit happens.
yeah,
We'll get up again tomorrow
another
and do it
day.
again."
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, that's such
That's
his life.
that old man's mentality, though. That's kind of the traditional mentality, as you're saying. Just like things happen, you got to move on.
Right, right. And something Hunter said with the man versus nature thing, I think that's a direct representation of like man's greatest thrill or man's greatest accomplishment is like securing something that nobody's ever done single-handedly before,
Yeah.
especially against that fish right in nature.
That story too, and that's why I always draw parallels to stuff. My favorite genre of everything is like sci-fi and like space exploration, but this was that genre of the time, of the era, right? But that theme, and like man versus himself, and the narration and the thought process, that's timeless too, because it doesn't matter where it's
Yes.
set. That story is relatable, and it's got lessons in it and things you can extrapolate and all that. So yeah, it's definitely a great read, a short read. Definitely recommend.
I don't know. It definitely seems like an old American classic you give to your like 10-year-old. And I don't know. I'd never read this book before. So to me definitely read like something that you would like give someone to like, or like give them like life lessons. Everything is definitely just a metaphor. Like, you know.
Y'all read this in high school?
I had
didn't
never
read
heard
it
of
in
it
high school.
before.
Yeah.
I
God,
never
dude,
read it in high school.
I remember reading it in high school and fucking hating it. And then this was the first time I had reread it as an adult, and it's, I mean, one of the best books I've read in the last year.
Dude,
It just
100.
says so much by saying so little.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Those are the best books, are the ones where like the author can say the simplest line, but it means so much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, to me, very much like what Hunter said, it seems very relatable. Like no matter what age
Yeah.
you read that, you can
Mhm.
find something to like kind of dissect and reflect upon.
Mhm.
It's very interesting.
Right.
And then you read it again 10 years later and you get something new out of it, because your perspectives have changed. But again, the story's timeless.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I don't. Yeah, one of you mentioned the Christian like themes in it, and I didn't really
I didn't pick up
think
on that
about
at
that.
first.
I didn't pick it up on it at all until we started just talking about it, and I was listening to you guys, and I could definitely see how a book like this would have like Christian themes then. And because what did you guys say that came up that kind of gave like a I guess like a nod
He,
to it?
he had, there was some part about like holes in his hand through the wood. Like, I don't remember what it was. Was it the harpoon or the,
it was the rope. He had cut his hands on the rope because he was literally, you know, fighting the rope. Like he didn't have a
yeah.
rod
Right.
and reel. It was him literally just
Right.
holding onto the rope. And when he was holding the rope, I mean, you would imagine he was holding it behind
Yeah.
his back, so he was kind of in the position.
Yeah, so I have a question for you, Coleman. So I looked up the type of line that he was using. How does that compare to something else you're holding in your hand? Like it's obviously not as thin as the fishing line that we use to haul in
See,
3-pound smallmouth bass, but like, can you give a
I've
perspective?
never fished that way. That's such an archaic way of fishing. Like they still fish like that down in South America. They'll pretty much take a hook, spin it around and throw it out and then pull in the line. But I mean, you've got to have like calloused hands because I don't know if y'all spend a lot of time fishing, but if you get monofilament line that takes off on your hand, it will burn like a rope burn. But imagine that like very concentrated. So I'd imagine he was probably throwing something out there that was like woven, I don't know, probably like woven intestine or something that would stretch, and then that was probably attached to like a main like piece of rope that he would hold on to.
Right.
But yeah, I mean that's some old school shit.
Yeah.
And
I loved that part of it.
What was the line with the shark when he stabs the shark and then it goes down and he talks about its eyes and how it rolls over and then sinks down? Do you have that up, Tyler?
No, I'm searching through the book for the line right now.
But some of the other
Yeah.
Christian references, real quick, were like that he was out for 3 nights and then came back, and then like Coleman also said he came back, went to bed, and just was like, we'll just get up the next day. I didn't really think of that till just now, but that's almost kind of like the resurrection, right? Like he went out, he suffered, he came back, do it again, you know.
And it talks about him folding his clothes too, if I remember correctly. When he goes to sleep, he folds his clothes and then puts the newspaper in his pants and goes to sleep. So that's similar too.
Yeah.
Okay,
It
so
shows
he
how poor he was living too.
yeah, that too. Yeah, he barely had anything to eat. He frequently talked about like, and he had one bottle of water the entire like 3 days or whatever that he stored
took
in the
sips,
boat.
half sips at a time.
Yeah, yeah, and then him eating the raw fish to keep sustenance. That shit was so like.
Dude, I thought it was funny how he was talking about dolphin fish and how it's not like good.
Not
That's
good
like,
raw.
yeah, that's like a
Yeah.
delicacy.
That was another thing that did age it that I thought was cool. It kind of told you of the times and how it was different and how now that we've fished the oceans dry, how that happened. But
Right.
he's like talking about eating raw dolphin and how he's like, oh, I much prefer this steak cooked.
Right, because what did he
dolphin is better.
what did he catch first? He caught a fish first, and then a dolphin,
Albacore
and then
tuna.
yeah, a tuna,
Yeah,
and then a
tuna.
dolphin, and then the dolphin had two of the flying fish in its stomach. That's how he
No,
got those, right?
I think
Because he had two flying fish as
I
well.
think the marlin had 2 flying fish.
The marlin did. Yeah, the
I
marlin.
thought the
did.
marlin had the suckers on it.
Oh, yeah, I
marlin
think
did.
maybe the tuna did then. Or maybe it was
No,
the
because
dolphin.
I thought it was later. I thought
You're right,
he was
because
like
he
near
because
starving.
he caught the dolphin, and that was what at the evening, and he said he was mad because he didn't like prepare salt.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Can you imagine having to do all of that shit, fillet a fucking dolphin, also while having a 1,200-pound
Hold on to a
marlin
line.
hooked? Yeah, in one
Yeah.
hand. That shit was crazy, dude.
Yeah, but can
I
you
mean,
imagine
obviously
how
it's
hard
fiction,
MLB is?
inhuman, yeah, dude, that's crazy.
Yeah. Man, I'm so glad y'all were as impressed with this book as I was. I finished it and I went to Grace. I was like, dude, this is the best book I've read in like the last 5 years. I was like,
Dude, it was sick. I was
Yeah.
out there yesterday literally fishing, like catching smallmouth while I was listening to it. It was badass.
yeah, dude. What a great book.
Another book I've read recently that's like up there with that book is The Prince of Tides. That's another really good book too.
Oh, yeah.
Never read that.
Put that one on the list.
We could put that on the list. Yeah.
It's a longer one, but Project Hail Mary is similar. It's like a sci-fi one guy on a spaceship.
This looks good. Graham, this looks good.
Have y'all read Dune?
Have
No,
not read
yeah,
Dune.
I listened to both of them, I listened to the first 3. I kind of got lost once it got like
Yeah, it gets a little out there.
yeah,
I thought it was all right. I get why it's so famous.
yeah. It's
But
they're great stories for sure.
yeah,
Dude, I read Ender's Game and I fucking loved it.
yeah, I
And
heard that
I want to
too.
read that
I
one.
read
saw
up on
that
the
it's good.
sequels, and apparently it just like goes like really crazy and stupid.
Really?
So I got kind of like disheartened.
That's a lot of sci-fi does that, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But I watched the movie too. It's not bad. But I'm gonna have to actually buy Old Man to Sea and read it. I feel like I didn't
Dude.
process it.
Yeah,
Like,
same. I
yeah.
was just
And
thinking
it's
that.
only about that thick. It's like 70
I
pages.
might get a Kindle.
Yeah.
I found it
Dude,
on
the Kindle's
Spotify.
sick.
So
I've thought about
I
it.
do it through there.
So what I do with Kindle is if I like the book on Kindle, because they're always cheaper on Kindle. If I really like the book, then I buy it for like my own personal like library. But if I only like it so, then I just I'm like, I'm happy I read that, but like I'm not gonna buy it.
Yeah.
That's what I do with like audio books and Audible.
Yeah, same
Like,
thing.
if I like
same
a
thing.
book while listening to it, I'll just buy the actual copy of the book so I can just keep
Yeah, I mean this is one I would buy.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
Anyway, like what I was saying earlier before we got on air here, just having the physical copy of the book for me allowed me to Graham also talked about it. Allowed me to look things up, like the items he was using in his boat. It allowed me to reread paragraphs when I fully didn't understand, the context behind it. I had to reread a few things, and I was like, oh, wow. After maybe putting some context behind it or looking up, what these materials are, I was able to make a lot more sense out of each one of the, the allegory statements, overall themes of the book.
Baltimore's up 6-0.
Yeah, Derrick Henry touchdown.
Did you find the line, Tyler?
No, I didn't.
You had one job, dude.
Yeah, I was gonna ask. He says what 40-1 reserve, or 3 and 40 reserve coils of something.
Of basically, it's just talking about line.
Yeah, but I thought I looked it up. That's just what it was in general, I guess.
Yeah, it's like filamented line.
I see. Okay. So I thought it was like some sort of special line or something. That shows about how much I know about fishing.
I mean, filamented line, what filament does is it's woven, and so when you pull on it, it stretches, but then it goes back. So it has a little bit of stretch. Because if you just throw out like a taut line there, you get a big fish. It's just going to pull it and just snap it. So like this allows some flex in it.
Yeah, so I guess that was going to be my follow-up question to you about like the bait he was using. It was sardines, if I remember correctly, right? Is that like something that marlin normally eat? Like we were saying earlier about how like archaic you said, but I think I was wondering like, is that normal?
So I don't do a lot of deep sea fishing. Most of the stuff I do is freshwater. But from what I know about marlin is they like to chase. So if he had his sail up and he was moving, typically you would throw the line out the back and hook the marlin through the eye and then let it drag behind so the tail was still moving like this so it still looks alive. And then the marlin would come up and swallow it. So yeah, I mean basically still the same idea.
In the book, he said it was just because he didn't have money, so he got the sardines from the boy just for the fresh scent. So he reused his old bait fish, but just put the sardines on the tips of the hook so that
That's right. I forgot about that for the smell.
Yeah.
And that's a big thing when you're fishing in saltwater. You put a lot of this gunky, fishy shit all over your plastics, and it literally just smells like fish guts, and that attracts fish. I don't know why.
Food.
Yeah. Interesting.
The more you know.
The more you know.
The more you know, the more you coals.
So let's get into the boy and the old man's relationship a little bit. Something.
Did anyone get the feeling that they were related?
No, I don't know.
think
I don't
they were
know. I
related.
don't think so. I don't think
they
so.
are.
I think
They
he was
said
just
that
like
he's been with them since, like 5.
he was just
For
like
some
a
reason,
figure
when I read it this time, the boy would talk about his father and how his father was upset with the old man. And it almost sounded like they had
Yeah.
like a father son like argument, and the kid was like his grandson or something. I don't know why,
Yeah, I can.
but I just got that vibe this time I read it.
No, I can see that.
He did like walk into the house and
Yeah.
wake him up. But I was gonna say that could be his grandpa. I kind of got that vibe, but didn't pick up on any like direct, kind of from
They
confirmation.
left it kind of vague, and I think that might have
Yeah.
been intentional.
Yeah.
I think it might have been intentional, but also like I feel like that's kind of I feel like it would make more sense that they weren't related because it's kind
Yeah.
of just more of like a bond and a friendship.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Leading
took it as like
to-
apprentice and mentor that kind of
Yeah.
got really close. But I mean, that's why they could be related.
Well, think about how much more of a betrayal it would be if you left your grandfather's boats because he was cursed and wasn't making enough money to go work on someone else's. That's what I was thinking about.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
that's what we
yeah,
write
yeah.
for the movie.
And that's why, because the boy said too, he's like, I didn't want to. My dad made me do it.
Mhm.
Right,
I wouldn't have
right.
if I didn't
Yeah.
have to.
Whereas
Yeah,
like
beats the boy.
if he was in the family, then I feel like you'd have some family drama there too.
Yeah,
that would need to
that
get dealt
could have
with.
been there too.
Yeah.
Like you said, it was kind of vague. But
Yeah,
I kind of like that though. I kind of like that it's open to interpretation.
yeah,
Yeah. That's something I very much enjoyed about this book. 100%. And something else I really liked is like, what was it? It was third person omniscient, right?
Mhm.
And I liked
That's
how
way above me.
I liked how he never really referred to him as Santiago or the boy Milano. I think it was. It was always the old man and the boy. Like
Mhm.
I don't know why, but like I was really drawn to that for some reason.
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of what I was saying. It was the way it was written was like stream of thought, like it was the old man thinking to himself. It wasn't like someone writing a story or even a narration. It was like, oh, I wish the boy were here, but he's not. I must be going. Like it was like his own head.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of books are like that, but it was just really cool.
Did y'all read Don Quixote in school?
Mm-mm.
No.
That it's written very similar to that, where he never really refers to himself like by name. He kind of just talks about like you said. I guess it's third person omniscient, but I really liked that too.
Not gonna lie, when I first was like listening to the book, because it was based in Cuba, there's like a city in Cuba named Santiago. So I thought they were like referencing the city of Santiago at first.
Yeah, I didn't even.
I
get
didn't
that.
realize that was like the old man's name.
Yeah, I don't know geography like that, so I couldn't put that connection together. So I guess sometimes being dumb about a subject helps you out in another one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
Well,
honestly,
the
I
kid
think my
called Santiago like a good amount because I think they do refer to each other by their names, but
Yeah, they do. I
narrative.
figured it out. Yeah.
Rarely though,
But
Yeah.
it was
I believe.
like when I first heard it, when like he first said Santiago, I thought he was like
Oh,
talking about the city.
Yeah.
one of the biggest things that I picked up on that like kind of resonated with me because I like to hunt and fish. He was sitting there talking, and he's like, do does killing this animal like mean I disrespect it or hate it, or does it mean that I like respect it more, and that's like why I'm reveling in it? Like I thought that was kind of cool because it's kind of hard to explain to
Yeah.
people who don't hunt or fish, like when you like shoot something or keep a fish to eat, like it really makes you appreciate it even more. And
Yeah.
like in the book he was like calling it his brother and stuff, and I thought that just really resonated with me because you know when I catch a fish I kiss it and then I put it back in the water. It's just kind of like it's like a special bond you have.
Yeah.
And that was kind of a cool, the fish kind of got its own character traits in that way.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it kind of like what Hunter was saying earlier, it really connects to that primal like human being in nature, right? The thrill of the hunt, like you were
yeah,
saying, and
that tradition aspect.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So I don't know. I
Yeah,
really appreciated that. I think Hemingway like was a very large proponent of like the manly man and like succeeding through hard work, grit, and determination. And I
Well,
think
it was almost like he caught the fish and the fish became his equal,
yes,
whereas at the beginning of the book, the fish probably viewed him as the villain and he viewed the fish as the villain. But as the book went along, they became equals, and then the sharks and nature became the villain.
yeah,
It was
yeah,
kind of interesting.
yeah. Yeah, especially, it seemed like the way he was interpreting it and speaking on it, him and the fish were one and alike, in that
Yeah.
manner. You know what I
Mm.
mean? Because he knew how the tides went, comparatively to where he was when the sun was in the sky in certain locations, and he was looking at specific constellations that led certain ways. I had to look that up too. I forget what the constellation was that he
And
referenced.
at the end of the day, they're both struggling for their lives against,
Right,
another being.
right, right.
Yep. Two enthusiastic thumbs up.
Yeah. Good story, good book.
Yeah.
agreed.
Yeah, it was short too. I like that. Short and sweet. Got it. Like
Point.
yeah, he was to the point and he got it over with. Like there's no added fluff. It was like super like, you know what I mean? Not like
Yeah.
bare
Yeah,
bones. I don't want to describe it like that, but like it was just like everything in it. Like if you're getting like a McDonald's juicy, McChicken or something, they just give you the fattest, juiciest McChicken patty that they raise little small cages in Tennessee or somewhere. And it is the most MSG filled, dumbest shit you could ever eat. But it's small, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
it's like 5 bites. That was this book. That's what
Yeah.
But it's also like, when you're doing something hard like this, like something that's so physically straining, you don't have a lot of thoughts going through your head because
Sure.
you're just focusing on the goal. So like realistically, this entire book could have been what went through his head thought wise over those 3 days, because he probably wasn't thinking a whole bunch. He was just focusing on the fight. So this could literally just be his internal monologue for the entire 3 days without anything taken out.
Mhm.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like because it talks in that way too. It talks about, you know, his like internal struggles where he's like talking through things with himself, and then he's also, while like battling with the fish and then trying to evade the sharks. So it's like he's got these battles on multiple sides, and it kind
Yeah.
of like, you know, goes into detail specifically about each of those specific battles. But I feel like it's not like over detailed, because I feel like some books, it can almost be like you're giving too much information where then like it's not getting to the point.
Mhm.
Whereas I feel like he just gives the information that you need enough to like get a description and visualization in your head,
Yep.
so then you can like see it yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, he's very good at that. I
Yeah.
felt that. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, the entire
Well,
book.
I think to that point, Graham, it's so like it has enough detail, but not too much detail to where you can treat it like that metaphor, where the fish, the marlin can become, you know, any challenge for you yourself, the old man that needs to overcome. Because I feel like that was like the main theme. You just kind of need to overcome and keep going. You know, just don't get, as long as you don't give up or die, you can't be defeated.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even being pushed to wits end of existence, basically. I think like he was very descriptive and to the point about that the fact that the old man just about died right at the last part. Like he was extremely close.
It's kind of what I enjoyed about it. It's kind of a book about the simplicity of life. Like when the only thing that you're living for is to not die and to like do the one job you have to do, makes life a whole lot simpler. Like this guy was literally sleeping on newspapers, but he was happy as a clam every day to go out and fish and do, you know, what he was, you know, brought up doing. And that's
Yeah.
really the only struggle he had in life, was bringing fish in.
Yeah.
And it was through his hard work that he accomplished, not luck. Because I feel like that was a very big thing that he was on, like not
Yeah.
what's it called, not relying on luck, just having the skill so that when luck comes along, it's
Right.
just yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that was very blatant right in the beginning because he says to the boy in some context, I've gone 86 days before without finding a fish, and it was the largest fish that I've ever fished in my life. And that, you know, he's like, he has that mental willpower, you know, to keep going, continue the struggle and succeed. Something else I kind of wanted to bring up were the fact that Hemingway focused on his eyes and his vision and sight. I thought that was interesting. The fact that his eyes didn't degrade over time, like some other people. Maybe that was the way he was fishing or like how, you know, genetically. I don't know
As a
that.
fisherman, I don't know if that would actually be true. Your
Right.
eyes get blasted out there.
Yeah.
Right, but that's like that's my point. Like for some rhyme or reason, like he was his pure existence was to catch that fish. I think that's why I think, you know, against all odds and all other fishermen's eyes, you know, shitting on him, you know, his continued to stay until this point. And I think when he comes back, he's at the point where he's like ready to almost die. I don't know.
It's all about willpower.
Yeah. Yeah. So I thought the eyes were very interesting.
I thought actually, you know what I forgot to bring up when I was talking about modern versus archaic? It was when he got back to shore and he had gone to sleep, and they were talking about how the tourists were there, and the tourist looks over and to her husband and she goes, "Honey, what is that?" looking at the skeleton of the marlin. And the
Mhm.
waiter, probably because they were in Cuba and it was in the 50s, didn't speak a whole lot of English. He explained what happened to the fish instead of explaining what the fish was. And she goes, "Wow, I didn't know sharks had beautiful."
Yeah, it's I didn't know sharks had such handsome, beautifully formed tails. And then
Yeah, and
and then
it
the
was
male
just like,
companion said, I didn't either. And then the last paragraph is up the road in his shack. The old man was sleeping again. He was still sleeping on his face, and the boy was sitting by him watching him. The old man was dreaming about the lions.
yeah, and it's that whole like new age tourism versus old age, I'm doing this for a living and this is my expertise. I thought that was a really interesting contrast.
Yeah, I didn't pick up on that at first. Like I kind of got what was happening, but I didn't understand the significance of that.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Some versus survival, basically.
Yeah, exactly. Like wealth versus survival. I thought that was interesting. And then the whole scene with the lions and the arm wrestling scene about how he arm wrestled that guy for, a full
Yeah.
day and then cruised up to the I forgot what the canal was in Africa and saw the lions on the beach. Like this is obviously a tough guy and
Yeah.
he's remained tough his entire life.
Yeah. And I think the fact that he was dreaming about that, and he kind of explained it a little bit. He's like, recently I started just dreaming about the lions on the beach in this like pinnacle point of my life. Wherein, he said previously he would dream about his wife or his relationship with the boy or like, his town and stuff like that. More tangible things. And I think like that progression, I don't know, that's probably above my head in terms of literature, but that had to have been significant. Like I
No, I
noticed
think
a lot of
I think
context there.
you're onto something. So I think the way I interpreted was, even though he just had one of the most hard fought days of his life, you know, he's looking back on the glory days of when he was, young and fit and going on these adventures. And even though he had a shitty day, he's still looking back on that day and he sleeps like a baby because that makes him happy and he has no regrets in life.
Another thing too to add on to that, the story where he talks about, the time where he could have had a chance to fish with Joe DiMaggio,
Yeah.
going back to the baseball theme a little bit, and like
Mm-hmm.
that's a memory that he sticks to and like keeps going through in his head, like, oh, I almost, if I would have done that, and so it's like another thing that he's just like, goes back to his memories and like kind of, shoulda, woulda, couldas, and but
Yeah.
like he accepts it and then moves forward, but he
Right.
does, have regrets still of like what he could have done, but he still has to move forward because he can't change anything.
Right. And that's an important life lesson. Like, once you're dealt a hand, what are you gonna do? Fold or play the cards? You know?
Yeah.
It is what it is, right? Um, I wanted to get back on the baseball track a little bit. I thought that was so interesting, and I guess I don't know why that didn't pull my head to the '50s, right? And DiMaggio playing on the Yankees, but yeah, it was super interesting to me the fact that he like really yearned for that newspaper every day just to see how the great DiMaggio was doing. You know what I mean? I thought there was a lot of significance in that as well, and that's what he thought about when he was out at sea for many days and delirious and like his hand was cramping on him. That was another, something I wanted to bring up. The whole hand cramp and he had to wait 10 hours or whatever after eating the fish, because he held his hand in the same position for such a long time. But yeah, I thought the baseball thing was extremely significant as well. Just to me, obviously that tugs at me a little bit. You guys know I'm a baseball fan, so
Oh, it also seems like that's what he and the boy bonded over along with fishing. It wasn't just fishing, it was baseball too.
yeah.
Definitely very grandfatherly topics.
Mm-hmm.
It is, but I still think it's not for the reasons that we stated earlier. I don't know. I don't
I
know.
also
I've been thinking about it.
I don't know why I really liked the part where he had the lucid dream while on the boat
Yeah.
and then he woke up and he had talked about his hand cramping and then he woke up and that same hand was asleep. It's almost like referring to like his fragility a little bit, but he's still like he's fragile, but he's still dreaming.
Yeah, I actually had a sidebar thought on that when I was reading the book. And does that come with extreme mental clarity and reliance on only nature? You know what I mean? We're fed with all these distractive inputs, outputs, like thoughts, shitty foods that are slowing down our metabolism, our brain processing. Is that something that could happen when a human is like straight up one with the earth and like almost enlightened to a sense? I don't know.
I mean, every major religion has that. Jesus has the desert, Buddha has the forest. You know, every religion, Muhammad has something. I can't remember what it is. But yeah, I think, nature and exhaustion leads to clarity sometimes.
Yeah. release of endorphins, almost like what is it? DMT or dimethyltryptamine is released before you die. It's the chemical that's released in your brain, and it's known to like give hallucinations, I guess, recounts of your life. Has people that have experienced it that I've read online. So I don't know, man. Like that was super huge with me as well. The connectiveness with nature, yeah, and just his skill was his masterful skill was kind of it. That was great too. I really enjoyed that. Just like how he was really quick with everything, and like the way Hemingway described it, he was, everything was done in the most extreme precision and like as simply but quickly as possible, to save time, effort. Like he's done it a bajillion times before.
Yeah.
Has.
Rereading this, like growing up, you always hear about Hemingway and how amazing he is. I just didn't have the appreciation for it as a kid, but now I kind of want to look into other Hemingway stuff. And I know this is one of his best, but I know he has some other great ones.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
It's really kind of re-sparked my interest in that.
Absolutely.
He
Yeah.
was just a man's man.
There's a lot of old authors that are like that, where it's like when you're younger, I feel like you don't realize as much, and then as you get older, especially like like the Mark Twains or Ernest Hemingway or
That era.
yeah, just kind of like
Yeah, that's true. I read The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn when I was a kid, and I don't know if I really grasped the true full
I
understanding.
mean, it is like a book about kids, but a lot of the messages and stuff, it's like you kind of
Very
have to be
adult.
an adult to understand it.
Well, they're coming for age tales, so they have a lot of those,
Yeah.
British lessons that a kid will start to learn as they grow up.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how I felt about Catcher in the Rye. That's like the first book where I like truly felt like, oh, this has some like interesting themes. That was like one of the books I remember reading in high school. Where I felt
I
that
still
way.
haven't read that.
Yeah, I read
It's
that in
pretty
high school.
good. It's a little interesting. I just remember I didn't like the protagonist, which also kind of made it kind of interesting because the protagonist that you hate, you're kind of rooting against.
Yeah.
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 But it's pretty short too.
Isn't that what made the dude shoot John Lennon? So he claims.
Really?
Yeah, I thought he said Catcher in the Rye told him to shoot John Lennon.
I feel like because before
Yeah.
that, I feel like the
true.
Catcher in the Rye was like the first anti-hero type movie or book, I mean. Where it's like you see a lot of that now with a lot of
Frankenstein.
like the gangster and the
Well,
mafia.
he's supposed to be like a troublemaker.
Yeah.
He's like a smart troublemaker or whatever, and he's also, I can't remember if he's rich. I think he is, so he kind of like cocky.
I can't remember, man. That was like,
Yeah, it was a long time ago too. It was like I want to say, ninth grade,
yeah,
maybe 10th grade.
that's so funny. Yeah, I guess we were very far away in high school. We read the same book in the same grade. Funny how things
Yeah.
work like that.
Well, we are all
All
the
I
same.
know, I want to grow up to be the old man.
Yeah, you read it.
He probably
3 hours.
read it
Yeah,
3 hours behind
exactly.
True.
Yeah, but yeah, I love the significance of baseball. Huge on that. And then yeah, all the allegories and like interesting statements and quotes. I also appreciated the fact that like he admitted he had faults and what he had learned from them. Like the whole thing about him talking to himself when
Hmm.
he was out at sea. He's like, for many years I was embarrassed to like do something like this, and my inner monologue was, what drove me through whatever. And I thought it was extremely rash and stupid and silly to, talk to yourself. And now, he's like, I think of it more of like a meditation tactic than ever before. And I thought that was
Yeah,
interesting.
I think it's just, I mean, when you boil it down, it's just a book about a guy who is very comfortable with himself through
Yeah.
what he's gone through in life experiences. Like he's just comfortable. He likes what he likes. He knows he's lived his life to the best, and he's an expert in what he does.
Yeah. Most gratifying thing in the world, man. Sure. I have not achieved
Yeah,
that status yet.
being an expert at one thing.
Yeah. I feel like that's tough to do nowadays with all the information floating out there. Like, even if you're, go to college for some specific subject or career path, you still have to know a bajillion things. And that includes like entry level skills like Microsoft Word and PowerPoint and, basic computer programs and like, you know, there's entry level, I guess, things you have to achieve to get into all of these different fields. And I think it's harder to like subjugate yourself to one specific ideology, not career path, but like more of like, I don't know what I would describe that, like a
You're like
lifestyle.
forced to be more of a jack of all trades versus a
Yeah.
master of one.
Yes.
Swiss Army knife versus machete.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I was going to ask something kind of similar, but I was going to say if you guys think this is a book that would relate a lot more now that there's so much also like brain rot on the internet that, also with the introduction of like Chat GPT and like other AI programs, I feel like there's less focus on actually doing things like the hard way so they're worth it and just finding shortcuts.
Right.
Yeah, I agree. I will
Yeah.
say I have learned a lot from YouTube though.
Yeah.
It's not about knowing
Yeah.
things, it's about knowing how to source
I think the
information.
unfortunate thing too is that like in a way it's encouraged, like the continual usage of the technology and everything. And it's just like, I think, just kind of going back to like the old tradition versus like the new wave, you know, I would say personally I'm very much more of the old tradition
Right.
than the new wave. So I would say I'm much more like the old man in a sense. I feel like I think a lot of people, that's why they like the book so much and why I like the book so much, because you can relate a lot to him and like what he's going through. I Obviously you would never experience anything like that
No,
or
I
hope to
agree.
experience anything like that, but you kind of feel the struggles, like the internal struggles that he's having.
Well, not even internal struggles. I would say even like little things that I was just going through quotes earlier, and one that kind of made me giggle a little was it's like, why do old men wake so early? Is it to have a longer day? I was like, yeah, dude,
I
I
like
definitely
that too. That was deep.
Yeah.
my days. It's not even just about being old. It's just about just having the necessity to, have
Well,
more hours in the day.
yeah, I also read that as like, do they wake up early to have more hours just because they know it might be their last day? Like something like that.
Yeah.
I thought that was a good quote.
Yeah. Also for fishing, he
Yeah.
said he wanted to be way out by sunrise, so you got to be up early. And I don't know I don't know how old the boy is supposed to be, but I don't know if that's something he fully comprehended in that sense, because
Right.
it seemed that he was woken up every day by the old man, so maybe he didn't know
No.
it was either right
Started
after
with
he
him
woke
at
up or whatever.
5, and I want to say it's
5? I would
yeah.
say like 9, 10 years old.
No way, he's 5.
No,
I
no,
thought
they
he was like
called
10.
it the man at
Oh
5.
yeah, no, that
Oh,
he,
oh,
it's
yeah,
Talk
yeah.
about about the
I
relation.
pictured him as like 15.
I pictured him a little younger than that, like middle
I
school.
pictured
age.
him as like 10 to 12.
I pictured 15 as well.
How old do we
Again,
think the
though,
old
it's
man
like up
was?
to your interpretation. Like
Right.
he leaves that open for you to
Wait.
decide how old he
Yes.
is.
No,
The
he's
old man in
older
Cuba,
because he buys him a beer in the first chapter, so
Yeah.
he's got to be like 18 or something.
but it was 1950, bro.
He's-
Yeah. Bro,
They're
there
drinking.
used to be like kids that would smoke cigarettes, like 10-year-olds would smoke cigarettes.
So we're between 10 and 8.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
'Cause it said
I was thinking
It said
about
he
that
bought him
actually
a
while I was
beer,
reading
too.
it. It's like this guy is considered the old man, but like in Havana in the 50s, Cuba would have been
60 years old.
was Cuba was communist by the 50s, right?
No, it wasn't until Fidel Castro took over.
Yeah.
Was that the
And then
60s?
that was like, yeah,
The CIA?
late 50s, early 60s. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, you got to think you're a Cuban fisherman in the 50s to be considered old, you're probably like 50 or 60, like you probably aren't that old considered like to nowadays.
Right. Well, and one thing
Yeah.
too, I think like because Ernest Hemingway was living on Cuba during the time, and he ended up like fleeing once communism came to power. Like he like moved back to America, but he lived in Cuba for 20 years. So I feel like that integration within that society, and he probably saw similar relationships with like maybe an older gentleman and then a younger
Sure.
gentleman. Like he saw that interaction himself with people on the island, and so he was able to use that as kind of a base for his book that he was writing as an inspiration for the relationship between
Yeah.
the old man and the boy.
Look who it is. Murphy
Hey,
came
Murph.
to offer his opinion on the podcast. There he is.
What you got to say, Murph?
What do you think?
He likes fish, I would assume. So
He said, "I'm a fan of the Sharks." I would have.
yeah,
eaten the fish
another
too.
question I wanted to pose or kind of bring up was like the I can't remember specifically what Hemingway called it, but there was like a tankard or a tub of like the lard liquid or something that he drank that nobody else did because he knew it would give him sustenance or whatever, and he
It's
rarely ever
fish.
got it.
It
What
was
is it?
basically fish fat.
Fish fat.
So like when you sometimes in those days you would, I guess, boil down fish to get the skin off, and then what would be at the top would be kind of this weird oil.
Mm-hmm.
It's basically olive oil but from fish, and it just smells like straight fish, but it's supposed to be really, really good for you.
Yeah. I can imagine.
I've never had it, but yeah, it's basically fish oil.
Right.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's like like the fish oil capsules that you can take.
Yeah.
It's
That's
basically what he was drinking.
Basically what it is.
Omega
Yeah.
3s.
Yeah, exactly. He was just drinking that shit.
Yeah, I think that gave context to his poverty level too, and
But that could also give context to why he still had his eyesight.
I was about to
You-
say that. That's
That
probably why
too.
he's still so strong.
And why he
Yeah.
was so strong, because he was drinking the shit
Damn.
that people thought was scraps because he was just that poor.
Yeah, I didn't think of
So
that.
like maybe that's something, not
No,
everything's what it seems type of deal.
Yeah, I think that. Yeah, that's a good
Yeah.
point. Yeah, man, that's why having these discussions is a lot of fun because, like, I think all four of you guys provide a unique perspective on the book, and mine is also different. So, like, it's fun thinking about that because I didn't associate those two things, but now that you say it, make that connection and say that, like, that definitely could be.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Just
exactly.
read the book again.
That's why
in
books sometimes
400
piss me
different
off. I'll
ways.
finish it and be like, I get the story, but like, what else was it trying to say to me? And sometimes it just wasn't trying to say anything else. In this case, I think it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, in this case, yeah. English teachers do be having a field day with that shit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
If
that's
only we had
one
this
thing.
discussion in 10th grade, we all would have gotten A's.
No,
We probably would have gotten C's. Would have been like, or F's. It would have been like,
Yeah.
no, actually, it was about this and
Because
this.
we
and
actually read the book this time.
And Spark notes it.
I didn't. I listened to it.
I do. I feel
We
like
appreciated
there were
it this
books
time.
that I read in high school, and I was like, I interpreted it this way, and then the teacher interprets it this way, so
Dude.
that's the answer, and then what I interpret is wrong. But it's not like the author. It defeats
Yes.
the purpose of it because the whole point
Defeats
and
the
what
purpose of
Hemingway does
literature.
such a good job of is like a lot of what he's saying is fact and just like saying what it is, but he does leave things up to interpretation. He like leaves things out so that
Oh.
you can kind of interpret it for yourself. And I think in a way, like that's it, an English teacher's worst nightmare, because then they can't like say, whether something's like absolutely right or not, because there
Right.
is no right answer.
Yeah,
Well, the
dude.
thing about Hemingway is like he's like the opposite of, I don't know if y'all have ever read Game of Thrones, whereas George R. R. Martin will describe a cup for like 2 pages,
Mhm.
whereas Hemingway will say something like super profound and it'll be 7 words.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah. And I think to Graham's point,
what a club represents life.
Less is more.
yeah, well, I think to
Sometimes.
Graham's point about like high school teachers and like the current educational system is, it would. I
Oh
think it
God,
would
we're on
be.
education.
I think it would be way better, and it would help the kids learn to contextually what am I looking for? Critically think a little bit more. Like, what are our options here? What do I take this as? But I guess for the teacher's sake, like what you were saying, how can you grade? You have how many classes a day? Four. So let's just say four classes of 30 students. You got to grade 120 of those reports, and if each of these students has individual thoughts and like deep thesis into this book, how fucking hard would that be to grade? That would take you literally forever.
I'm just gonna say, I know some curriculum is like provided and structured, but they could also just not, and they could grade the assignment based on the fact that you completed it and read
Right.
maybe instead of a 10-page
I
response,
will say,
maybe
yeah.
a 1-page response with your most highlighted whatever your most profound takeaway,
Well, I would
and then
grade-
that's
grade
easier
on
to grade for
abstract
you,
thought
and it's
instead
more
of,
beneficial to
you know,
them.
Yeah.
just regurgitating information.
Right. Basically, to prove that you like actually read the book, like by like bringing up quotes from the book or details from the book and like showing that you know what you're talking about. So that way you can also root out the people that are like looking it up on Spark Notes or just like taking, you know, basically cheating. That way you and like I feel like everyone is kind of a victim of that because when you have to read a book, like you're forced to read a book for school,
I agree.
it's a lot harder to do than like just reading a book that you want to read for fun. So
Going off of that, what is funny is as I was reading this book, I was sitting there just going, man, I'm really enjoying this. If only I had read more books when I had time to read books as a kid. Like, I don't have anything else to do as a kid. I wish I had read a ton more books. Right now, like, I need to find time to read books, and sometimes it's
yeah,
really hard. It's like, damn, some stuff you just take for granted.
everyone made fun of the kids that read books on the bus and
Exactly.
in school, but look at them now.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think this book was a great example of that. Like,
Yeah.
you have to do the things you enjoy and practice that, and you'll achieve, happiness, right? And like
Full
that's
circle.
direct,
Holy shit.
right?
Yeah. Well, the
Direct
problem with schools
correlation.
is how do you balance that and then still do your other 5 assignments for your other 5 classes?
Right. Yeah,
You
it takes a
know?
lot of
Yeah.
critical thinking skills, I think, to like really analyze a book like this. Even with how
Yeah.
short it was so like in depth and extreme meaning, allegories out the ass. There's important shit in that book, man, and like take some thought to like think through that and how that impacts not only his life in the book, but like reflect on yourself and like stuff like that. Is really interesting, and I think should be pushed more a little bit.
I think that's a perfect bookend.
Yeah,
Yeah.
No pun intended.
I know.
Yeah.
Sounds like there was a pun intended for that.
It just worked.
That's right. Okay. All right. Let's go around and give our ratings and final kind of thoughts here, and then we'll wrap it up. I know the.
How are we doing 0.5 ratings? Like,
Yeah,
or
I mean,
Yeah,
even
we can do 0.5.
even
Or-
0.25 or 0.1. You could go
0.25s? Okay.
6.9. Yeah, we respect.
We're
we
doing
respect
6.
Or
all
like-
right.
We might as
or
well
we
just do
could
10.
do like 8.2347 or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Own rating system, like 17 mushrooms out of 30. Yeah.
17 mushrooms. 17 happy clams.
Yeah.
All right. Who wants to lead it off?
So, are we doing it out of 5? Just
No, it's
so
out of 10.
It's out of
Any
10.
decimals. Mm-hmm.
I would give it, honestly, I do wish it was longer because I really did enjoy it a lot. But I get that was the point. They were trying to say a lot by saying a little. I'd say like a 8.5, 8.75, something like that. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really good.
I would probably say around that, maybe a little bit less, but yeah, a little bit less. Probably like an 8.3, 8.2. I'll go 8.3. Lock it at 8.3. I wish it was a little longer too. I also enjoyed the audiobook, the narrator, Donald Sutherland. I don't know if
Dude,
you all
that's the
know
one
who
I
that
listened to.
is.
It was great. He
So
did an
good.
awesome job.
On Spotify.
So good. He has a great voice for that, and I thought it was perfect for the
Didn't he just
narration.
die?
Yeah, he did.
Oh,
Mhm.
damn.
Mm,
Yeah, that's the one I listened to. I very much enjoyed him.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was also the copy I
Damn,
listened to.
okay.
I think I'll go a little higher. I'm probably gonna go 9.1 because I don't know. It was short and sweet, and it had all of that packed into it, and it was a really good read. I listened to it twice.
Yeah.
Probably listen to it again just for fun at some point. But yeah, it's just a good story, and it's like it's got a good message. And that last line just really hits you like
Yep.
Yeah, I'm right there with Hunter. I was gonna give it a
don't want
9,
to do it again.
specifically because it's so short. It's like something you could always pick up and put down in a day. And I thought back to what you said too, that you were listening to it like while you were fishing. It's like, I don't know. It's just something that you could pick up quick and always pick up something new. So it's a fun read. I'm definitely gonna be picking up again. So I don't know.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I don't think it needs too long.
I'm right there with Hunter and Luis. I read a physical copy, and just having the ability, like I said earlier, to go back and fact check what I was reading about was invaluable to me as a reader. And I'm right around a 9.1 or a 9.2. I think that I really enjoyed the shortness of the book. For whatever reason, I thought that that was perfect. Although I would have enjoyed a longer book, as you guys said. I think there was a lot there, and he could have expanded on it a little bit. But I very much enjoyed the fact that that was the point.
Yeah,
The point was to be concise, and like he didn't have that many thoughts, right? Like
yeah,
I forget he was saying that earlier, but like you know, just the complexities of life being so simple in his eyes was just fucking phenomenal for me. So definitely over a 9. I don't know what I would have. I have
sure.
it like a
It
nine
can be good
five.
for any age as well, though.
Yeah.
Whether
Yes.
you're super young or super old, it's easy to consume regardless.
See, I feel like the older you get, the more like it
I
will
think
hit home.
you resonate.
Yeah,
Yeah, like as a kid, you always want more, 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 and as an
Mhm.
adult, I really want like less, 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 a little bit.
more value.
Yeah, more value.
100%. Yeah.
I do agree, though. I think that is a good way to say it, Luis. It's
Yeah.
always something you
Right.
could pick
The
up because
older
it's so
you
short.
get,
I
the
know
more
it was
your
something you
values
grew out of
change
it.
from like,
So,
you know, materialistic, kind of more of like the simpler things, whether
Yeah,
it's your relationship with a person, or your
Yeah.
interactions that you have, or the relationship that you have with the thing that you're doing and you enjoy doing. Like if you enjoy doing something a certain way, then why change that?
Yeah.
If you know that changing that is going to make you miserable.
Right. Yeah, I think it has a lot to do with maturation and like emotional intelligence as well. Like our brains don't finish developing until around this time, and I think new studies have come out that like people with ADD or ADHD even later at this point. But yeah, I think it really takes a What'd you say? Yeah, yeah,
35.
exactly. But I really think it takes like a more
35.
mature and like experienced perspective to get more out of this book because you understand and you appreciate like the little things, right? I think you just get more contextual like value out of it. That's a
Yeah,
wrap.
that is a wrap.
All
That's
right,
a wrap.
gentlemen.
That's
All
a wrap.
right. Well, it was phenomenal having everybody on here. Great discussion. Phenomenal book. We'll pick what book we want to do for the next one, and we'll put it on Twitter because we know, we have like 6 followers on Twitter. They all want to know what book we're
I
reading.
don't. I
Shout
don't
out,
tweet. I'm
shout
too
out
old
to
to
this,
tweet.
shout out to the 6 followers on Twitter, whoever you are, wherever you are.
Yeah, but I really enjoyed
Yeah,
the
thanks.
fiction this time, and last time we did historical fiction as well. So yeah, if anybody likes any types of books in particular you'd like to hear us talk about, I think we're all very much interested in similar subjects. So
Let's get some spooky stories for Halloween.
some spooky stories
Bruce
for
Bomb.
Halloween.
There. Maybe we could do this as a book series, but I really think we could
Twilight.
either do like The Hobbit or The Lord of the Rings. I would
I
love
actually,
to do that.
Dude,
yeah,
I was
I
yeah,
just
I had
read
it.
Lord of
Yeah.
the Rings.
I had a
maybe
I had a
last
long
year.
discussion with somebody this past weekend. I was like, I cannot get through those books for whatever
Why?
reason.
They're
dude.
hard.
Really,
They're
Yeah,
really
they're
hard.
very hard to get through
They're
never
incredibly
read
hard to
them.
read. But I mean, if we did it for something like this, I would try.
because
Listening
there's
to
so
it
much.
is very much easier.
Audiobook.
I will
Yeah,
say that.
because there's
There's
just
a
so
lot.
much going on.
There's a lot while listening to that you can just kind of zone out because it doesn't really make any difference in the book, and then you can just focus on like the key aspects of the book. There's a lot of, I don't want to say fluff. No, it's
I
good,
like
but yeah, I agree. It's hard. It's hard to get through.
it's
I will
all
admit,
important.
but I will say
But yeah,
the book, the third book, like I don't like the third movie very much, but the third book is like amazing.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah, I read the whole
Yeah.
Hobbit and couldn't make it through the
Hobbits
first
are
book.
also really good.
Halfway through, I lost interest.
Did you get to Tom Bombadil?
Yes,
Yeah.
I read it was right after Tom Bombadil.
Yeah, it loses it a little bit. Once they get to the hollow with like the ghoul, it loses a lot of people.
Yep, that's
Yeah.
exactly where I lost interest.
Yep,
Yeah,
it's the
But-
side quest.
Yeah, exactly. But anyways, thank you everybody for taking time out of your glorious Thursday night, where we now have Thursday night football for the next like 30 weeks. So I'm gassed up about that. It's not actually 30. It's like
I was gonna say
20.
that doesn't sound right.
But anyway, yeah, really appreciate everybody's perspectives tonight. I thought that was a really valuable chat. I learned a lot. Honestly, you know, I came into it with a synopsis or a perspective of my own that I hope I, you know, transcribe well to you guys. But yeah, I learned a lot, and I think I took out a lot more out of it after chatting with you guys. So I think this was a really good experience and like, you know, good effort.
Nice to meet you, fellers.
You take
Yeah,
care.
that's right.
nice to see you again, Coleman.
Yes, sir.
That's right. All right, everybody.
gentlemen.
Well, thanks for listening along with us. We hope you enjoyed. And make sure to give all of our wonderful social media accounts a follow. It should be at Slanted Attic. Our podcast is available anywhere you consume your podcasts, Apple Music, iHeartRadio, Spotify. I think we might be on Sirius. Not sure. And we're on Amazon. But thanks, everybody, for sticking around this long. And we will see you next time.
Peace.